I walked into that office thinking it was just another meeting, maybe budget talk, maybe another pointless initiative to streamline efficiency. What I didn't expect was Kyle, slick hair, sharp suit, CFO in training, with a personality as exciting as drywall, telling me, flat out, I had two choices: take a 28% pay cut or walk. He said it like he was doing me a favor. I didn't even blink, just looked at him for half a second, said, "All right," then stood up and walked out. No questions, no argument, no fake smile, just gone. 9 damn years I gave them. I built that place from the back end out. Duct taped systems, patched vendor agreements, pulled processes together with spit and policy hacks. I kept the engine running while they played golf and gave each other fake awards for leadership. I was the guy behind the curtain. Never missed a deadline, never asked for a raise, never got a thank you either. I walked past the HR bullpen with my badge in hand. Not one of them even looked up. Not even Jenna, and I bought her kids Girl Scout cookies every year. The only one who noticed me was some intern who looked like he'd seen a ghost when I dropped my badge in the bin and kept walking. That's how it ended. No handshake, no exit interview. Just Kyle with his neatly printed spreadsheet and a line that said, my worth had suddenly dropped by over a quarter. They thought I'd beg, maybe argue, offer to take a hybrid role, scale back, prove my worth again. But they didn't know I'd already seen it coming months ago. They didn't know I'd been ready. What Kyle didn't realize, and what legal definitely forgot, was that I wasn't just some overpaid sysadmin in a hoodie. I wrote half the operational policy stack they still used. And I didn't just write it, I signed it. Legally binding, notarized, archived. One clause in particular, Clause 14D. They never revoked it, never even read it after I drafted it. Rookie move. Before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from? That document, sitting untouched in their back-end system for 6 years, gave me the kind of leverage most people dream about. I didn't need to fight, didn't need to make a scene. I'd already set the trap. All I had to do was walk out and let the wires stay unplugged. So I did. I left the building like I was going to grab a sandwich, jacket over one shoulder, no box, no goodbye wave. I passed HR with that same steady pace I used on a normal Tuesday. Nobody blinked, nobody asked where I was headed. That's the funny part. When you keep your head down for almost a decade, people stop looking up when you pass. Upstairs, my desk was untouched. Laptop open, notes still on the whiteboard, a half-full coffee mug sitting there like I was coming right back. I didn't shut anything down, didn't wipe a drive. I just slid my chair in, picked up my car keys, and walked. No goodbye email. No vague inspirational message about next chapters. I left every file exactly where it was, because I knew it wouldn't matter soon. When I got home, I didn't speak, didn't kick off my shoes, just walked to the kitchen, poured 3 fingers of bourbon into a lowball glass, and took it straight to the spare room where the old ThinkPad lived. It looked like hell. Hinge cracked, fan whining like a dying leaf blower, battery shot unless it was plugged in. But it was mine. That's where I kept my backups. Local only. No cloud sync, no work email. Just cold, quiet insurance. I powered it on and waited. It took 4 minutes to boot, like an old man rolling out of bed. I clicked through folders until I found the one labeled Ops Continuity 23. Inside, it was every document I'd ever authored that legal either rubber stamped or forgot existed. There it was. Continuity Ops Master Agreement VV5ers. Final. Dated. March the 7th, 2019. I clicked it open and scrolled down to Clause 14D. It was still perfect. Clean language. No loopholes. It said any changes to vendor systems, licenses, or integration paths require dual sign-off, an officer plus my signature, or a named successor officially filed. And guess what? No successor was ever named. They never changed it. They never removed me. They forgot. That doc had gone into a policy vault so deep, even legal didn't keep it top of mind. But IT systems don't forget. Not if you build them right. And I'd built that vendor bridge system to check for one thing before any renewal or cancellation request could go through. A signed active continuity clause. No match, no action. They hadn't pulled my credentials. They just shut off my badge and walked me out like dead weight. I didn't need revenge. That's the part no one gets. I just knew what was coming. They stepped on a trap door the second Kyle opened his mouth, and it was already halfway open before I even cleared the parking lot. The ThinkPad fan kicked up again, loud and angry. I ignored it. I was reading through my own clause like it was scripture. Every line, every signature, every timestamp was still intact. And because I knew how those vendor systems ran, their checks, their renewal scripts, their auto-lockout triggers, I also knew exactly what was going to happen next. Not that day, maybe not even the next, but soon, very soon. And all I had to do was nothing. I closed the laptop, drained the glass, and went to bed. 5 days later, just after 8 a.m., the first vendor email came through. A subject line, urgent, co-signature missing, renewal failed. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping bad gas station coffee, watching it hit my personal inbox. The system flagged me as the last known contact. My personal email was tied into the continuity file years ago. They never updated it. It was a licensing auto-renewal for the logistics pipeline tracker, Tier 1 software. No co-signature, no authorization, failed handshake. The renewal bounced. There wasn't panic yet, just confusion. At 9:24 a.m., another one dropped in, different vendor, same error. This one attached the clause, straight from the system pull. Clause FTND, the one with my name on it. By noon, there were 4 total, each citing the same language. Each rejected for the same reason. Missing secondary authorization. See Clause 14D of Master Ops Continuity Agreement. Kyle had tried to renew all the licenses solo. The system didn't let him. There was no override. I built it that way on purpose. Automated enforcement, lock signature fields, timestamp verification, and dual-party consent on any critical path. It wasn't some backdoor hack. It was part of their own compliance framework. Legal approved it. Kyle probably never read it. The silence was the best part. I pictured him at his standing desk, arms folded, glaring at his screen like it owed him an explanation. He probably told IT to check for bugs, maybe asked why the system wouldn't let him just push it through. I didn't reply to any of the vendor emails, didn't forward them, didn't even open the threads beyond the subject lines. I knew they'd start escalating, and sure enough, by the next morning, they did. The vendors didn't know I was out. Nobody made a formal announcement. I hadn't updated LinkedIn. No company-wide email had gone out. As far as the systems and the partners were concerned, I was still active. One of them sent a polite escalation message. Please confirm whether my name has been formally replaced per Clause 14D protocol. No alternative signatory is recognized in the current system. That's when I knew the real fun was about to start. Inside the company, the cracks were beginning to show. It started small, just a few delays in procurement. Some vendor systems kicking back access tokens. A couple of overnight processing jobs that didn't run because they couldn't verify active licensing credentials. IT probably blamed network latency. Maybe someone checked the SSO logs. But no one knew the real problem yet, except me. I sat back on my couch, same bourbon glass from last week in my hand, TV on mute. I watched the red notification counter on my phone crawl upward. 13 missed messages from work emails I didn't use anymore. 2 texts from numbers I didn't save. Then 1 call from Kyle. Didn't answer it. Let it ring out, straight to voicemail. No message left. The vendors were the first to feel it. That's how it always starts. Outside pressure. They weren't panicking either, just following their protocol. And their protocol said the signature they needed didn't exist in the system anymore. And since I hadn't been replaced, officially, legally, or in any registered continuity form, they were frozen. I didn't expect it to fall apart all at once. I knew how long these things took, but I also knew what was coming next. Internal ticket escalations, frantic Teams messages, people calling IT and legal and pointing fingers. That clause wasn't some scribbled note in a dusty PDF. It was live, active, integrated into the system rules engine. It was the system, and I was the clause. No access key, no patch, no human override, only silence. I stretched out, took a sip, and stared at the blank ceiling like it owed me a thank you. They weren't just locked out. They didn't even know what door they were banging on yet. Tuesday, 8:59 a.m., I was on my second cup of coffee, scrolling headlines like nothing was happening, while the company dialed into a vendor compliance call that would end in a nosedive. Kyle led the meeting. I didn't have to be there. I knew the cadence just from the invite list and the timestamp. Standard vendor alignment slot. Only this time, legal had joined too, which meant the panic was already creeping in. They were all on one big call. Kyle, 2 compliance managers, someone from procurement, and a rep from one of the major logistics vendors. Probably 5 or 6 others listening in with their cameras off, praying they wouldn't get called on. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but one of the vendors, I'd known him for years, recorded the session and dropped the audio file in my inbox that afternoon. He didn't say why. He didn't need to. Kyle kicked it off with a voice full of fake confidence, layered in corporate nonsense. We believe this issue stems from a delay in synchronization between our internal signatory systems and the revised procurement schedule, he said. Vendor rep didn't even pause. We don't care about org charts. Where's the signature? Dead silence. You could actually hear Kyle blinking, then shuffling papers like the clause was going to fall out between the stapled pages. He tried again. Which clause are you referencing exactly? Boom, that was it. That was the moment. Vendor guy didn't raise his voice, didn't sigh, just said it straight. Clause 14D, Operational Continuity Agreement. We've cited it 4 times. Your team still hasn't responded. Somebody in legal finally unmuted. A woman. Young voice. Sounded like she'd just realized the brakes were cut and they were halfway down the hill. We're reviewing internal authorizations now. We may need to escalate. Vendor rep responded fast. Escalate all you want. No dual sign-off, no service continuity. This is a binding agreement. Our hands are tied. Then came the sound. I'll never forget. A long, stiff silence. Not even breathing. Like the room had sucked in its last ounce of air and was waiting to exhale. That's when the system really started to lock. Internally, job queues failed. Contract workflows flagged themselves. Budget forecasting couldn't refresh because the API keys hit expired endpoints. Purchasing froze. Procurement couldn't pull fresh pricing, so no approvals moved forward. Finance flagged the lack of active licenses as a compliance risk and automatically froze discretionary budgets until the issue cleared. It wasn't chaos. It was worse. It was stall out. Engine lights everywhere and nobody behind the wheel. They still hadn't figured it out. The system was just running the playbook I wrote, and without the cosign, the game paused. By noon, the Slack threads were lighting up. People getting added to chats, then removed, then added back. Someone created a vendor handoff emergency channel. IT pinged legal, legal pinged ops, ops pinged finance, and finance didn't respond at all. I watched it all through messages from contacts still inside, screenshots, forwarded emails. What the hell is going on? On repeat from every level of the company. Someone tried to manually bypass the license issue and push through a stopgap fix. The system rejected it. Rule enforcement bounced the request with a beautiful little message. Authorization missing per clause 14D. Secondary signatory not validated. They were trapped in their own infrastructure. Kyle didn't talk much after the vendor call. Apparently, he sat through the rest of the meeting with his mic off and his jaw locked tight, probably wondering how the guy he cut out of the picture was still holding the pen. That night, I got one more email, another escalation from a vendor asking who to contact, now that the continuity signatory was inactive. No one at the company had given them a name, not even an out-of-office response. I was still scrolling through the latest batch of panicked screenshots when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, local area code. I almost ignored it, but the message preview caught my eye. Did you trigger this? I knew that tone. It belonged to a junior legal associate I used to work with, a guy who always triple-checked his own notes because he didn't trust the senior attorneys. Smart kid. Nervous, but smart. I typed back one word. No, he replied fast. Are you sure? Everything points to you. I set the phone down, let him sit with it for a minute. I wasn't hiding anything. I hadn't logged into their systems once. Didn't have to. I finally wrote, "System's doing what it's built to do." He didn't answer right away. I imagined him sitting in one of those cramped legal offices, tie loosened, laptop open with 15 tabs pulled up. Contracts, amendments, old PDFs. I could picture the moment he realized I was telling the truth. I hadn't lifted a finger. The machine was just following the rules I wrote. Another message came in. They're pulling the OCA apart, looking at all signatures. I didn't reply. I didn't need to guide him. A few minutes later, Clause 14D, that's yours. I wrote back, yep, then nothing. Total silence. He finally understood, enough to stop asking questions he didn't want answers to. Inside the company, the scramble was hitting its peak. Kyle's team tore through the continuity agreement line by line. They checked signatory logs, legal records, timestamps, everything. I knew exactly how it looked from their side, like someone had set a tripwire right under their feet. And when they hit Clause 14D, they saw my name in black ink, not a digital stamp, a real signature, dated, verified, binding. I got another text from the junior lawyer around noon. They didn't remove you. I just typed, I know. He didn't push it further. He understood enough to stay quiet. Meanwhile, Kyle's group was melting down. I heard from someone in finance that they had a whole team chasing their tails, checking whether Clause 14D had ever been superseded. It hadn't. They never created a replacement role, never filed a successor, never even brought it up after I wrote it. They thought they could fire the operator and the switches would flip on their own. Wrong. That clause tied every critical vendor flow directly through me. I wasn't the hero of the system. I was the fuse box. Pull the cover off, and everything goes dark. By mid-afternoon, nobody texted anymore. No questions, no finger pointing, nothing but quiet. The kind of quiet that always hits right before someone gets called into an office to explain why an entire part of the company just stalled out. I poured a glass of water, stared out the window, and thought about that last look Kyle gave me before I walked out. That smug little smirk, like he'd finally put me in my place. Now he was probably hunched over a conference table, sweating through his shirt, realizing he'd kicked out the one person the entire system depended on. They built the machine. I just made sure it followed its own rules, and now those rules were eating them alive. Thursday morning, 8:03 a.m., I got the call log. One of the executive assistants I used to help back when her printer wouldn't connect sent me a screenshot. Subject line, emergency board session, 9 a.m., no agenda. Just the words, mandatory attendance. That told me everything I needed to know. Inside that room, legal finally put it on the record. 6 of 9 core operations workflows were officially suspended, frozen due to an unresolved continuity breach. The contracts flagged pending, the APIs flagged inactive, and the renewal engine that tied it all together was dead in the water. And the trigger? Me. Specifically because when I walked out, HR auto-processed it as an immediate resignation, which triggered Clause 14D without anyone realizing. Employee departure processed as immediate. Continuity protocol defaults to Clause 14D. The board sat there, blindsided. Legal laid it out in plain English. Because no successor was filed and the existing signatory exited without replacement, our systems defaulted to non-compliant status. Vendors are refusing renewals. Data access is frozen. Licensing is null until co-signature is resolved. And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Larry, the CEO, golf addict, charisma black hole, slumped back in his chair like someone knocked the wind out of him. His voice was low, like he didn't believe the words were real. You let him quit. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The silence that followed did the job. Kyle sat across from him, pale, stiff, flipping through the packet like there was still something in it he could spin. He stammered, We didn't think it was still active. No one flagged the clause. Larry just stared at him, cold, blinking slow. That clause was written by the guy you cut out of your budget plan. Another board member chimed in, and it's signed. You all signed it. It's binding. They'd finally seen the truth. I wasn't just some overpaid ops ghost sitting quietly in the corner. I was the hinge their whole damn system swung on, and they'd yank me out like I was nothing. The clause wasn't buried. It wasn't obscure. It was right there in the operational continuity agreement, drafted by me, reviewed by legal, signed by execs, enforced by system logic, and no one thought to undo it. No one thought I mattered enough. They pulled the wrong Jenga piece, quietly, casually, like they could just restack the tower. Now, everything was tipping. Another director asked, why wasn't a successor filed? More silence. Kyle looked down. We didn't see the need at the time. We were simplifying roles. I could picture the vein popping in Larry's forehead. You simplified your own operations right off a cliff. The room didn't explode. No screaming, no slammed fists. Just a long, steady acknowledgement that they'd locked themselves out of their own house and left the key in the guy's pocket they tossed into traffic. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. The message was loud without a single word from me. They didn't just lose control, they gave it up, willingly, carelessly, because someone in a crisp shirt and expensive shoes decided I didn't look like leadership material. Now the machine was coughing smoke, and no one could even find the ignition. They'd given me the authority, they just forgot to take it back. Friday morning, they posted a carefully worded LinkedIn statement about strategic vendor transitions. No names, no responsibility. Just corporate filler dressed up to sound like a pivot. Internally, they were bleeding. I got a message from someone still in ops. Subject line was literally WTF. Screenshots showed frozen dashboards, bottlenecked purchase orders, vendor portals locked down. Project timelines marked unknown in red. Kyle, pulled from every active initiative. No termination, of course. That'd make it public. They moved him to a newly invented title, Strategic Containment Director. It's what they call corporate limbo, when someone screws up too bad to keep but too loud to fire. His badge still worked. His calendar didn't. That afternoon, I got an email. Not from Kyle, not even from someone with authority. They sent a junior from legal, probably hoping the name wouldn't spook me. The subject line said, potential consulting opportunity. Inside, would you be open to a short-term engagement to support the resolution of current vendor access issues? Minimal time commitment, remote possible, comp structure negotiable. No apology, no accountability, not even a line acknowledging what they did. I didn't reply, didn't even hover over the keyboard. Just closed the tab and moved on. Because by then, I didn't need to take their call. I had already picked up a new one. I was 2 weeks into a role at a smaller logistics firm based out of Cincinnati. 40 people total, no layers, no politics. First day, they gave me a title, a key card, and asked how I like my coffee. Second day, they let me lead a vendor onboarding call. No over-the-shoulder approvals, no 20-slide PowerPoint. By Friday, we'd shaved 9 hours off a weekly process that had been wasting their time for 3 years. No miracle. Just someone who listened when I talked and didn't care what brand of sneakers I wore. No games, no protein shakes in the break room. No fake hustle culture or buzzwords. Just respect. They gave it. I gave results. Simple as that. I don't know what happened to Kyle after that email. Don't care. Maybe they parked him in a side office, gave him tasks that didn't matter, and waited for him to quit on his own. Or maybe he stuck around thinking he'd bounce back, get another shot. Maybe even find another guy like me to do the real work while he played executive. But I wasn't watching anymore. I was too busy doing what they never let me do. Build something that worked and actually be seen doing it. Tuesday morning, I was sitting in a corner booth at Rosie's Cafe. Same place I went when I needed to think. Local spot, good coffee, quiet. I had my laptop open, catching up on vendor metrics for the new firm. Nothing heavy, just tracking throughput and response times. I was halfway through a cinnamon roll when the courier walked in. Mid-20s, looked tired, khakis, and a windbreaker. He scanned the room, found me, walked straight over without a word. Just held out a leather envelope and waited for my signature. No return address, no company logo, just weight to it, thick enough to matter. I signed, took the envelope, and he left. I didn't open it right away, sat with it for a second, ran my hand over the stitching. I already knew what it was. The only people who still had my name on record were the ones trying to forget it. I broke the seal and pulled the folder out. Inside, clean, precise, typed like every board doc I'd ever formatted, were the minutes from last Thursday's session. I skimmed through the formality, the motions, the financials. Then one line jumped out, boxed in bold. Acknowledged. Critical operational loss resulting from unaddressed clause 14D continuity oversight. That was it. No name. No explanation. Just a single sentence that told the whole story. I didn't need my name on it. I was clause 14D. I'd written it, tied it to the system, carried it on my back for years, while people like Kyle skipped off to networking mixers and tried to remember my title. Now it was in the minutes, a permanent record. Not out loud, not public, but locked into the history of that company forever. No apology letter, no groveling, no offer to bring me back into the fold, and definitely no check big enough to make me care. Just silence. A slow, papered-over admission that they broke themselves trying to cut corners they didn't understand. I closed the folder, zipped it into my laptop bag, and finished the last sip of my coffee. Didn't look around. Didn't smirk. Didn't post some poetic nonsense about karma on LinkedIn. I just stood up, tossed a few bucks on the table, and walked out the door. Because I never needed revenge. In the end, they heard me loud and clear, through nothing but silence.